I'm really excited to dive into this with you guys.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
And is Carlos, are you behind the PFP? Okay,
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Gordon, thanks so much for being here as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm just going to give one last quick little DM and blast here. Are you guys East Coast, West Coast? Where are you? Are you in the US? I don't even know.
I'm in New England.
I'm in Portugal.
Oh, Portugal.
So it's 11 p.m.
That's
here.
right. You did say, well, thank you so much for staying up late with us. And I'm a Connecticut guy myself, Gordon. I'm living in South Carolina. But all my life I was in Connecticut and wanted the warmer weather.
Yeah, see, I like the warmer weather, but I lived in Florida for a while. I actually now have a desire to go farther north. I'm looking to move to like Vermont or Maine.
Okay, cool. You're going the other way. Amazing. So I'm gonna just jump right into it. But before I do, would you guys mind giving just a quick LDR on your project and who you are maybe before that you found that project, or what you're doing for it? And Gordon, why don't we kick it to you first?
Okay, well, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but the last few years I've been really focused on world design and game development. A couple of years ago, or almost 2 years ago, like a year and a half, I wound up coming together with KlueCoin and the creators, and we founded Xenia. And we spent the last year and a half essentially constructing a series of worlds and Web3 integrated tech into AAA games like Rust and stuff like that. And so we've gone from there, and now we're progressing into full-on game development of designing our own games and all that stuff. So it's pretty exciting. And that's pretty much what I'm about at this point in time.
Yeah, so for me and basically like my co-founders, we've been working in the industry like collectively it will be around like 40 years now. Basically there is the company behind Rune Realms, like the two co-founders, they worked as lead texture artist and lead animator, DreamWorks, NCSoft, and so on. They have a lot of experience, and I basically used to work as a concept artist. Besides basically Mirror Studio, we basically run the largest online academy for training people in VFX animation and concept art. And basically for the past 3 years, we've basically been working on building game studio and looking into ways to incorporate like blockchain technology to games. And one of the projects that basically we've been working on is pretty much Rune Realms. And yeah, so it's been a journey. It's been a fun process, and it's actually a super cool job that we have.
Amazing. So I have a lot of places that we could take so many parts to this. I think we're in such an interesting time in this Web3 space of transition and onboarding, and just how the gaming space itself has evolved. So feel free, obviously this is more of an open forum, feel free to go into any nook and cranny if it as it's contextual to you. But I just want to start with at the beginning, right? Like when the term blockchain gaming, metaverse gaming, Web3 gaming, like what is that? Let's just pick one term, blockchain gaming, for instance. Like what does that mean to you? If someone's been in the gaming space for a while, how do you define it clearly and simply for someone?
I can say from my own personal experience. So, like, I've been in game development and world design for probably 5 or 6 years now. And I didn't really know much of anything about blockchain related games up until about 2 years ago. And even then, everything I knew about it was little rinky dinky games you could play on your phone. You earn a little bit of like a tiny fraction of a Bitcoin or something like that. And then I started seeing things like Axie Infinity coming out. And that's when I started really looking into like Web3 game development and all of the different things that people were creating, and realized that even though that's not what me and my team specialized in, it was something that we could definitely become part of. And so we just started learning how we could integrate that kind of technology into the things that we've been creating. And in that year and a half, I have learned so much about just like Web3 gaming in and of itself and how these things communicate with AAA games. And it's an interesting, unique process, and I'm excited to see what the future has for it, because people are just now starting to really get into the meat and potatoes of game development and putting it on the blockchain.
What about you, Carlos? What does blockchain gaming mean to you?
Yeah, like for us, it basically we tend to go like on philosophical route of the question, where for us, basically, blockchain allowed to build player-focused experience. For the longest time, you basically had a one side of the coin where basically like, the studios hold all of the power. And I believe that with blockchain technology, it basically allows to create an experience that is unique to each player. And I believe that like by doing that, it is a way better ecosystem than just having like a centralized system for building games. It's something that you can do. For example, you have like the example of Roblox, right? That they allow other people to basically to build on top of Roblox, but I think that it can actually go beyond that. So a interesting concept that we've basically been playing with, basically we called, inside of Meta Studio, we call it basically building human-centric technology. That is basically the fact, for example, that you have immutability in the blockchain. How cool would it be, for example, if you have like a quest, right, in a game, or you have like a raid in a game, and then you have like multiple different guilds going basically to have like to complete that quest or to complete that raid. And because the blockchain is immutable, that means that once like one guild, for example, beats that raid or beats that quest, then their names basically are printed on the blockchain forever, becoming like a legendary guild that everyone can basically confirm that they are the ones that were able to do that. And the same thing goes, for example, for NFTs and items, right? So we actually often do give this example because that's something we've been working on in building. But imagine, for example, that you have like a sword that you go in an adventure with that sword. And it gets to a point that, for example, that the sword can't evolve anymore, like with that single player. So imagine that now you pass that sword, for example, to another player, and that player goes into other adventures, and then based on the adventures that you went through, the sword basically evolves and becomes like a legendary sword. That at that point, you have like a unique item that is one completely unique because it has like all of those stories behind the sword, and at the same time, it's a legendary item because you can basically prove every single sword went through in a way that is like completely unique, and even like you can like change the form of the sword as it evolves and so on. So that's basically been like our main focus is looking at how we can use blockchain technology to basically empower players and just create a more better experience for game as well, on top of the normal like true ownership of assets that is a completely other topic as well.
Right. And that's such a great point, great example. And cat at that point, cat's out of the bag. Like anything within that game, within that ecosystem, within the lore, is just takes on many different layers, and it's such a different experience than the games I don't consider myself a deep gamer per se, but I played a fair amount, and it just totally different experience. Both of you have been obviously in this for some time, and we get into the whole there's a business standpoint of onboarding, but like just as like a gamer, as someone that's just in it, who like how do people look at this like that have been in this for a while? Is there pushback? Like what's intriguing people to get into the blockchain gaming space if they're just in the traditional gaming space? I'm curious what's intriguing and what's a deterrent that you've come across in your paths.
Well, I can say that I come from a very unique perspective because like all of the Web3 development that me and my team have done have been solely developed within the game Rust, which already has a very strong and well-established community of players. They're very devoted, but the nature of the game itself actually changes the way a person thinks. It tends to make people a little more paranoid because it's a game where you're literally having to always look over your shoulder. They have a mechanic built in that allows you to hit a button and then turn your head and look behind you to see what's going on. Like, and just that mind, and due to different aspects of the game, it makes them naturally paranoid. And when you bring something like Web3 integration into something, they're going to have a lot of questions, they're going to have a lot of doubts. And when you see things like some of the stuff that has happened in the crypto community just within the last couple of months, I mean, it intensifies those doubts. So one of the things that we've been personally working on to try to combat it is we're not like most games. You have to go and you have to like buy something specific, and then you have to like follow these different rules and requirements to get to the point where you're earning something. And For us, it was just sign on to our website, connect your wallet, play the game. If you own Rust, you can come onto the servers, you can play for free. If you're not into crypto, you can still come in, play, have a good time. You just ignore the crypto side of it. But if you are into it, then you have different earning potentials. And throughout this whole development process, we're not only seeing the different ways that we could incorporate Web3 to not into just this game, but different unique ways that we can incorporate them into gaming as a whole as time goes on, so that we can make things like NFTs more valuable, like give them a use case scenario and have the ability to go from platform to platform. But many people have covered this before.
Yeah, I agree with Gordon. Like one of the things that we often like look into a lot, like it's funny because as a team, like we consume more content against like blockchain technology in games than pro content. But the thing that we actually realize is that majority of people that are like against blockchain in games, they tend to focus on the aspects of the play to earn aspect and how it basically works. Right. So and that's basically just simply because of the fact of how like of the sheer amount of games that failed on having a token in the game. And yeah, like so people basically look at that and they think that then like they basically think like cause and effect where because of those games failed, then every single other game that basically has like blockchain technology will also fail. The reality is that you have companies, for example, like Ubisoft, that they are investing like a lot of money into looking into blockchain technology. And that is for a reason. It's because they realize that there are things that are simply better doing with a blockchain than without it. And it's easier to do it as well. And then when you look at companies, or better, big companies that are against, for example, blockchain games, you need basically to sit and wonder why. So you have like two examples of the same coin, right? You have, for example, Epic Games that they're like, it's fine. You can basically have like a blockchain game like on Epic Store and they don't care. They actually support it in a way. And then you have Steam, where they've been like super public on how they don't support blockchain games and NFTs in general. However, if you look at the Steam model, the reason that they do that is not because they're actually against it. It's just because that will completely destroy their current model, right? Because they indirectly basically support like the CS:GO like gambling websites. And then even inside of their own platform, you can basically buy, sell stickers and skins. There's basically a form of NFT. And that's basically like 13% of their revenue. That is like a lot of money. But the problem with that is that when you have like a centralized company basically protecting that ecosystem, that means that whatever happens in platform, basically they just own and that's it, right? So the player at the end of the day doesn't have that much voice. So when you threaten an ecosystem, then most likely a company will be against that. So one thing that we've been looking into, and we are like on the same page as Gordon, where for the way that we're approaching the game is basically looking at how we can make sure that the player can basically go in and play the game without even realizing that it's like a Web3 game. And then it's basically a free to play game. And as people basically play the free to play game, they earn like NFTs and they'll basically progress in the game, like naturally progression, where then at that point they can use those NFTs like in a public marketplace for them to trade or to purchase other NFTs and so on. So the reason that is something that makes a lot of sense is because, for example, one of the things that we are doing is if you look, for example, at a game like Clash of Clans, they have like that is pretty similar to what you're building. They have like a gem system, and that gem system basically is sold by the studio to basically progress in the game. What we are doing is basically instead of being studio selling those gems, we're basically just allowing players to sell the gems, and people can basically buy the gems to progress, but it's a peer-to-peer transaction based on basically players actually in the game, or if they basically own a certain NFT that they can like earn for free by basically playing the game, and they can basically start producing more, which allows them, for example, to go in a quest that will basically unlock the NFT and so on. And for a period of time, they produce more gems and so on. That is a model that makes more sense because you're basically grabbing a mechanism that already exists and just basically give that power to the player, for example, without the need of having like a token with liquidity. So there are multiple ways that you can still have like the play to earn part in the game that just makes more sense than the traditional token with liquidity and farming tokens. And yeah, it's an interesting discussion to have. But I think that like when people start looking more into the possibilities of actually having like a blockchain technology in a game, then people look at it and start to see that it actually makes sense and it's a natural evolution, pretty much.
So on the topic of play to earn, and I think Gordon started to hit on this maybe, is in the macro space, in the macro gaming space, are there a lot of, I mean, is it just a catchphrase? Like, is it just like one of these buzzwords because it's the hot thing? Yeah, I mean, I'm saying this because I was in Miami at an event and I was listening in on a really intriguing talk on the future of blockchain gaming. And one thing that resonated with me, a point that they drove home, was that a lot of gamers that have a bad taste in their mouth because of it is because, what's advertised as play to earn is actually pay to win, which isn't respected in the ecosystem of gamers. And that, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If some whale could come in and just kind of buy this token or that token in advance or whatever the mechanism is. And I'm just curious, do you see any of that, either of you, in the space as the play to earn gets thrown around? Is it more of a misleading thing? When I tell that story, I'm just curious where you go with it.
I feel like that depends on what type of game you're talking about, because I mean, honestly, some of them have a monetary gatekeeping system in place. And I mean, making it available to people is probably one of the most important things. And like, so I think like one of the ways that I look at it is like a specific token that I like to invest in. I'm not here to shill, so I'm not like actually going to put the name of the token out there. But its whole system is designed as a leverage token, and they have deals that they're building with banks and all of that stuff. And the whole plan is to get the systems that everybody's using to start utilizing crypto, so your everyday person is using it even though they don't know they're using it. And but when it comes to Web3 gaming, I know that was a little off topic, but when it comes to Web3 gaming, like the way that I kind of picture it, at least for like a use case scenario from somebody who's not super knowledgeable on crypto, but is fairly well versed in gaming and what the communities are into and all of that. And so like, I kind of look at it this way, where whatever token should be incorporated into a game, like that token should be for the gamers. You can build whatever system around it for them to be able to use it or sell it or trade it, but ultimately, I don't feel like the people creating the game should be utilizing that. They should utilize other features that put funds in their pocket that allow for the expansion of the crypto community as a whole. So, picture a game like Valorant, a decent first person shooter. That one's kind of arena based, but give it something a little more open worldy, and then build in a nice system for people to be able to earn crypto or whatever, but then also have domains or territories that if certain people are able to establish control of it, then they can put whatever emblem they want up, that like something that is obviously been vetted for the game itself. But now it gives the creators of the game the opportunity to go out to other like NFT communities and like make deals with them, pull in their branding, and give their players a chance to come into your game for free, and like a game that's really fun. Like it's crypto's important, but the number one focus is entertainment and enjoyability for the player. And then also give them the ability to, if they're good enough and they can accomplish a set goal, they can now broadcast their favorite NFT community to the world within the game. And so that now you can actually have different NFT communities fighting each other in game. And then it gives more use case scenario to their collections. And it also gives us the ability to incorporate their artwork into the game and so on and so forth. But I think I just kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent, so I'm sorry.
No, please. And this is the forum for that. Our space is your space, but you bring up a very good point. That's a differentiator of Web3, like the easiness. And that's not the most advanced word, but it's so seamless to collab and just create these partnerships with other companies and brands that align with your vision, align with what you're doing, to bring into your ecosystem and to share communities and to build with each other and build off of each other. So I think it's one of the huge aspects of this whole thing. Curious, Carl, on your thoughts about that. I don't know if you guys do any collabing partnerships within your lore or game.
Yeah, like I like agree with Gordon. We actually are taking a different route in terms of collaboration. Like we want to right now, like we're spending again, like we've been working in this project for like 3 years. And we are basically like there are a lot of things like behind the scenes that we've basically been building that we didn't show like to the world yet. But what we want to do is to basically open up like our IP so people can basically build on top of that. That too, like we have pretty much like a 10-year vision on to the point that we actually get to the point that we actually want to get to. That is basically having like a platform where people can go in, and even if they are not technical people, they can still basically build their own games, for example, on top of our world, or like create their own items inside of the world, and basically just keep it expanding it, and basically give like players the power for it. So the way that we basically think about that, like if you think, for example, in a like in business, you have like the flywheel effect. If you think about the flywheel effect for us on doing that, basically what that does is if we have like more creators in our platform creating inside of basically our game, that means that we generate more content, and the more content that we have, we get more players, and the more players that we more creators, because those creators can also make money on top of our platform, right? So basically allowing people to do that, it creates a flywheel effect like for us to basically to grow as a platform. And we basically just want to build tools that allow people to do that. But before we do that, we actually need to create like a successful game and a successful lore and something that people will be inspired by and people like to basically be part of that world. And then from there, we can allow basically people to expand and add to it pretty much.
I love that. And while you're talking about the long vision, I'm curious just because I'm uneducated on this, but I know it does take some time. What's like a good, this could be all over, but a good kind of estimation of a timeline of a game's release and traditional game from like concept to it getting out in the world?
It really depends on the game. So, for
100%.
example, yeah, we like besides like Rune Realms, we also outsource our studio. An example, for example, of a game that we are currently building in the Web3 space for another project is Marvin Inu, right? We are building their Marvin's Intergalactic Adventure game. So for the game that we are building for them, I don't know if you're familiar with the game Vampire Survivors. It's like super popular.
Yeah.
That game is fantastic.
Yeah. So like we're building something similar to Vampire Survivors like for them. And that will take us basically like 3 months to complete. Right. But then if you look, for example, into a game like Rune Realms that we've basically been working for like in the studio itself, we've basically been working for 3 years, but in Rune Realms we've been working for 3 years. Right? Because there is like a lot of like different components into the game, and just like the sheer amount of like calculations that you need to do for the game, it is like extremely time consuming to basically be able to test like everything, especially like on a studio. Like our studio is particularly, it's like small, they're like 15 people
Size
now.
is such a
Yeah,
huge thing.
yeah. So yeah, it depends a lot on the project. You can have like projects that will take you like 10 years. You have projects that will take like a year. It really depends on the project.
I mean, it depends. Like, are you doing a side-scrolling 2D pixel-based project? Are you doing something more like Vampire Survivors that he was talking to, which is still a fairly simplistic pixel-based game? But then also, if you now upgrade that, you move into the realm of Minecraft, there's dealing with 3 dimensions, and also, like, that's a game that was still built with a very small dev team in the beginning, but now the team is monstrous.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it all depends on the type of game that you're making, how much detail is involved into it, how experienced the team is, how big the team is, and what their overall goals are. Like, are they doing a mission based, like very linear, story based game, no matter the style? And they know they have to get from point A to B to C to D, or are you giving them an open world environment that has side quests upon side quests with hidden Easter eggs and multiplayer events or solo events, or you're going to be talking about a game that needs to have its own servers to run, like World of Warcraft, or is it going to be something that is single player, or it's designed to actually link like the players' computers together so that they have like a shared virtual server while they're using it? Like it's the details are so extremely different from game to game and team to team that it's actually really hard to answer that. Some games There's a game development team out there. They made what was it? A totally accurate battlegrounds, a totally accurate battle simulator, or something like that. But they created these games in a weekend, like as just a test to their team, and they just kind of slap something together, and they're super fun, super low detail, and like you could make games really quick. But then you look at something like Skyrim or GTA 6, which will never come out, like something that involves super in-depth lore, graphics, animation, rigging, world design, everything, you know. And are you going to be using Unreal Engine 5? Are you going to be using Unity? Are you going to be one of those people that design games in Python? Like, and so
Yeah,
much in
yeah, like for just like basically to add on that, like, and then there are scenes like, for example, even your design choice for the game, it can take a completely different route in terms of the production of the game. So, for example, not only in production but also in the cost of the game. So, for example, if you're building a game that uses 2D assets, either it's just like drawn 2D assets or pixel art, that can be like fairly like more, it can be like less expensive if you do that because you don't need a 3D modeler. But if you add a 3D modeler to the team, then your time for production like significantly reduces because it's way faster to basically have like concept art. Once you have the concept art, the 3D artist basically builds the model, and then from that model, you can basically change things. So, for example, if you're painting like a, I don't know, like a mug, right? You just need to stretch polygons if you need a taller mug. You don't need to basically to repaint that or to redesign that. So, but then on top of that, we're adding more costs into like building the game. So it's like different decisions on the path that you're taking to building the game. It can significantly increase not only the cost but also the time for production, or reduce the time for production and increase the cost. So yeah.
Getting a real education here. I ask that because I'm thinking, and back to some of this play to earn kind of FUD like banter I remember hearing. I'm like, and you guys are talking about long term vision, like 10 years. I'm like thinking, man, the space hasn't even really started, right? Like we haven't seen the Minecraft yet. Like you guys are building that. So I feel like, especially with like this last bull run where so many people were onboarded to the space and everything was happening fast, fast, fast. Projects were minting out in seconds in the roller coaster ride that is like that. I mean, that was over in a blip, right? And to the point of everything you just said, like things like this take time. So I know like we're so early is cliche, but I think it's so prevalent here in this little corner of Web3. Well, this colossal corner, I should say, of Web3 that is the gaming space. So I appreciate yourness with articulating all that.
I
I
think
think
something that would be really important for any game developers, either ones that are working now or ones that may wind up coming up in the future, is actually you're talking about the blip. We had the bull run, everything went crazy, everything crashed or not crashed. It did what crypto does. And during that time, when we're in those lows, like the diehards are in, we know what's going on. We know it's going to come back. We know this is a time where we can invest, but there's a lot of people that are going to go, screw crypto. I don't give a damn about that. And so for people that are making Web3 based games, you need to be thinking about those moments for your games. That's why it's so important that this game is fun, that people have access to it, and that they want to come back. Because if they can ignore the crypto aspect and enjoy the game that they're playing, then they can go, oh, hey, look, I made a couple of bucks playing this game. Oh, well, I was going to play it anyways. Like, that's the important thing. It's just they need to adhere to the rules of game development, period.
yeah. And like whenever we talk about like a 10-year vision, for us it's fairly simple to basically to make that decision. And I think that it's important for people to basically start looking at projects in the long term and evaluating things by first principles. Because when you look, for example, at the birth of very new technology, it is extremely hard to predict basically what the technology will do. But you have like the famous example of Robert Mercalf that he was the inventor of the internet, and the dude literally said that the internet will basically collapse like in a year, and it didn't. It just became like one of the biggest things in the world. Period. So when you look at the technology like blockchain, I think that people tend to think a lot about like the micro impact that it has, and they look into project by project base and not in the actual impact as blockchain as a technology, right? So that's why, like, for us, whenever we evaluate like in our 10-year goal, is basically looking into what the blockchain itself brings to the gaming environment and how we can basically use those, like, that technology to basically create better experiences as well. So you have, for example, games, for example, like, I don't know, like League of Legends, or even like Guild Wars, right? For example, where you have like certain items that are like rarer than others. If those items are NFTs, for example, you can not only have like proven scarcity for that item at that point, but also just build them in a way that they're actually like a special item and not just an item in game, right? So you can start adding meaning to things because of a single technology, which is super powerful.
I love that. And I know, Carlos, I saw you guys have some NFTs as part of yours. I think that I saw the shrine and the golem, maybe. Pardon me if I'm butchering that. I think I remember reading that. If you don't mind, guys, just elaborating on how you're incorporating NFTs in your game. I love that while we're on it.
Yeah, so like the shrines and the golems, basically what we allow people to do is to participate in our ecosystem, right? So people that basically own a shrine and a golem, they will basically own a percentage of the company. So that's basically the main goal behind it. But then in the release of Rune Realms' main game, for the first year, basically people that purchase the NFTs, they will basically be able to like to sell like the gems, like the quote unquote like hard currency in the game. And then in the second year, we are going basically to open that to all players, where everyone can basically farm gems and sell the gems. And we are basically just doing that as a way for people that pretty much like believed in us in this phase that we are building, and like rewarding them in the long term as well. One thing that we are doing for NFTs is actually a very fun experiment as well, where we are building NFTs that they basically increase in, well, I was about to say like increase in value over time, but it's just like the logical thing behind it. Like I don't want to shield the project. The reason I say that is because it is an NFT that is a deflationary NFT. So you can merge the golems, right? So, and for you to basically to have like a legendary golem, that means that only 100 golems, like if everyone basically decides to merge to basically have like a legendary golem, that means that only 100 golems will ever exist in like in the market from the 25,000 golems that we are releasing, right? So it's a fun experiment that we can play with, and at the same time allow people to own a piece of the company. We basically bootstrapped the entire project from scratch. We still bootstrap the project to this day, and we never actually wanted like to rush the project or to release something that we basically don't believe in. And yeah, I think that like the model of actually giving like ownership to people that basically purchase the NFT is a very interesting experiment to have. And at the same time, like we are in a position that now that we actually have like a proof of concept on like the different games that basically we are building, and also like continue building Rune Realms.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Gordon, how's Rust incorporating NFTs?
So that's been an interesting process. When we were first presented with the task of creating a series of servers for KlueCoin at the time, we presented them with three opportunities. We said we could make you a custom server with a custom map, and because me and my team specialize in plugin design in Rust, and I am a world designer, so I can build out any world you can imagine in the game. And so we gave them the first package. The second package is we can give them an actual integrated crypto earning system into the game, and a couple of servers with a handful of maps. And then there was the big package, which was going to be 10 custom maps. So each of these maps is 4,200 meters squared. And these have been all hand designed, every aspect of them, with custom monuments. We've expanded on the actual gameplay of Rust. So anybody who knows the game could come into our servers and they'll know what to do. They'll have fun, but it has a unique lore and story built into it. As far as NFT integration, we have a land sale that we've been setting up. And so what we did was we took our servers, and because the whole game is operated on something called a wipe system, because you have a building mechanic in the game and a raiding mechanic, so people will like try to steal from each other and all that in Rust. And as you play the game over time, you'll get like little extra bits of code that are just cost up in the server, and over a couple of weeks it can slow things down and lag it. So you have to wipe the game, which means everybody starts back at the beach naked with a rock and a torch, and they have to try to survive and work their way up from there. So we took our maps and we cut them into a grid system. So we have 3,136 plots of land, which are specific coordinates, and we attach them to a group of custom NFTs. And now each one of these NFTs will have a certain elements from the type of land they can find at their coordinates, because every wipe we change the map. And so even if the map's changed, you still own that same location, and it just everything underneath it changes. And as players come in, if they earn any of the Xenium while on your land plot, you earn crypto as well. So you don't even necessarily have to play. And then there are certain ones that are more valuable than others. And that's just one of the systems that we're looking into. We're also talking about a seasonal VIP collection where we actually take a couple or four like really nice done up Xenia Rust related artwork from a different artist each season. And when people purchase one, it comes with a single skin piece to a collection that's going to be part of the VIP collection. And it comes with one VIP perk. And all of our VIP perks in the server, like quality of life perks. You're not giving people an upper hand over anybody else. We're just making their day-to-day management of the game easier. And if you own all four collections so that you have the full VIP set, or you get one of the unique one-offs within it, then you get like an exclusive ticket to a special event that we've been wanting to do. So I don't want to go into too much detail because those are things that we haven't really hammered down. We understand what we're going to do and how we need to do it. It's just we want to make sure that it's 100% feasible before we give people too many details. You know what I mean?
Of course, absolutely. And I appreciate both of you going into depth here. I wanted to, your answer to this next question you may have already covered in how you're incorporating NFTs, but I wanted to talk about community because it's such a pillar of Web3 projects, no matter what kind of you're into. I was curious how, whether it's your own communities or just in the macro of gaming communities, how those particular communities are different than your traditional just sport fan bases, your Minecraft, your GTA, your even sports games. I was just curious your take on that.
Communities, at least for me, it's another unique experience because the NFT community and crypto community as a whole, they have their own mindset. Yeah, they have infighting, but they have kind of this one kind of general way of thinking. And then Rust players are so different, and they're also both communities are unbelievably salty. Like if they find a reason to be upset, they will get very upset and very loud. And watching these two communities clash over their complete different views is sometimes annoying but also hilarious. But I mean, it's just part of humans mixing. It's not too big of a deal. It's just the hardest part is how do you market projects like just specific. When you're marketing to gamers, you're looking for one demographic. When you're marketing to crypto and NFT people, that's a completely different demographic. So you need to have some sort of plan in place that either one of those groups can look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense. And so like that's what we've been trying to do at least.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I was trying to go more specifically. And I think I asked the question more broadly. But, like, for instance, I spend a lot of time in the film 3 world, and creators in that space, when they're trying to market to their community, that it's all about access and being part of the process, creating and making decisions of like being in on the script, like, okay, you get to vote on whether the character does this or this in the next scene. If you're a valued member of the community or you have ownership, whatever, you get a say. And I'm thinking about the gaming space, and like everything's pretty much already created, right? Like it's not like, I mean, maybe you can release levels or whatever or aspects of the game, but I was just curious on how you, if at all, the ways that you kind of bring your community in to be part of that, make it more community like. But you do bring up a good point
Well,
of having two totally different demographics of people.
before I go into mine, I'd like to hear Rune's take on this one first.
Yeah, like I think like for like I actually thought like touched on that earlier when I was talking about like the idea for the flywheel effect of allowing people to create in the ecosystem, and basically that is just like allowing co-creation with the community in general. I believe that for us, like we kind of stayed away on using the normal crypto language or the NFT language in the project. And that was by design, even though we are like a primarily blockchain game, we want to make sure that we can appeal with like different audiences. And I believe that in order for us to do that, we actually need to earn the right for people to like our project. And so what that means is that we actually need to build a project that is fun enough and that people like the project and like and just have like an organic community being built. I don't think, for example, that when you look, for example, at a game like League of Legends, I don't think they ever imagined when they started the project that they would have like such a hardcore fun and then community base. We tend to have like more focus on that like starting early on because we actually want to enable the community basically to create with us. So, but I see that is something that kind of happens organically as well as you evolve and as you grow the game. But yeah, like what Gordon was saying is completely right. Like you have like different side of the story. You have the player base, and then you also have like the NFT base. They're like two completely different behaviors. It's like two completely different personas, and you basically need to treat like each of them differently. One thing that we are basically trying to do is the way that we, for example, introduce like NFTs in the game. I know that we just touched like we talked about like the golems and the shrines, but those are just like for the NFTs like inside of Rune Realms that people basically interact like with the game. The way that you're building it is in a way that doesn't alienate like either community. So if you are like a player that never played a blockchain game or a Web3 game or a play to earn game, whatever you want to call it, basically what would happen we will do is like let's say that you go like to your HQ and you evolve like your HQ to level 3. At that point, we basically transform that HQ into an NFT and we basically onboard you into the NFT experience saying, hey, by the way, like because this NFT, there are certain things that you can do with it that you can do with like in normal like gameplay mode. And you can basically like let's say that you like are tired of playing the game, you want basically to bounce instead of basically the game just like staying there in the server, you can actually pass those assets to other people and allow other people basically to take over your village, for example. Or things, for example, like resources, right? Where players can basically like each player has like a profession on when you basically start building your character. So if your profession basically only works like with wood, that means that you automatically need to basically to enable like peer-to-peer trading between players, like to buy like other types of resources or to trade in resources. And then yeah, like I think, and even like in terms of the gameplay itself, you can find ways to build communities in terms of gameplay. So the way that you're building Rune Realms, and the reason that it's called Rune Realms, is because it's set in the world of the Norse mythology, and you have like the 9 realms. And then the way that the game is basically built is inside of the 9 realms, you can basically battle any player in that realm, in that map. Right. So let's say that you're in Asgard and I'm in Asgard. I can battle you in Asgard. However, and here's the catch, and what basically makes, on our point of view, what makes the game interesting, is that at one point inside of a period of time, every single person in Asgard will basically have to work together to defeat all of the other realms because it's basically like a complete like map war where you'll have to share resources with other people. You have basically to collaborate with other people that once they're your enemies because you're attacking them for resources. But at one point, everyone needs basically to collaborate and work against like the other realm for their realm to survive. So those are things that even like in terms of gameplay, they end up building community and they end up basically building more interaction between players as well. And therefore like building community around like the project. I know it's a very long answer, but yeah, you have like multiple different ways of tackling that problem. But I honestly believe that community is one of the core aspects for anything really, not only games, but for even for businesses as well.
I agree 110%. Gordon, I'd love for you to chime in. I know you passed to Carlos first.
Yeah, I just kind of got consumed in the conversation and forgot what the question was.
It was just how do you see your community getting involved in a more interactive Web3 like way other than the traditional gaming, like just hardcore fans?
So we have a couple of different ways for community interaction. One of them is giving, like, we can give them a whole bunch of things that they can actually be part of naming. So, like, to give you an example, Xenia, we got our name from the community. We told them that we wanted something that had meaning behind it, that fit with what we were trying to create, but also had like a unique and mysterious feel. And we kind of gave people, I think it was like a $200 prize or something like that for the person whose name was chosen. And somebody threw Xenia out there, and we looked it up and we realized that it was a Greek tradition of gift giving and friendship, and we're like, okay, that's perfect. And so like that was just one of the things. We've had the communities be part of the building process where they can name some of the monuments. We had this like the sunken ship in the game. The community voted to call it the sunken Codfather. So it has that name written along the side of the ship. We also have a film team, and the film team isn't like we've gone and hired special actors or anything like that. These are members of the community that have volunteered that actually want to be part of this and help, and we pull them into a special server and we film like just random skits and videos. And once Xenia's underway and like running well and our servers are full and we have more time to focus on that type of creativity, the goal is to hopefully create some sort of visual content that's easily shareable and consumable by the community, whether it's a show or short TikTok videos or just things that could be shared on Twitter. And we think that's not only an opportunity to get like members from the game playing side of the community in on it because they have fun acting out in it and being members in the show. But on the other side, like as far as the NFT and the crypto people, if we have the right characters and the right dynamic, we can actually make it palatable for them as well. So like we can incorporate jokes or talk about things that are crypto or NFT related, or if there's some sort of like crazy thing going on in the community, we can, or just in the crypto world in general, we can have it addressed in some sort of entertaining and amusing fashion that makes people want to hit that share button. And so like it's those are, I guess, not necessarily crypto ways of including the community, but we want to know that whether it's with Xenia or any project that me and my team work on moving forward, we like the idea of having communities incorporated and being able to help in the decision making process. It's just the more people you have involved, the more minds on it, the more fun it is. And whenever you use somebody in the community's idea, it makes them feel so special. And then suddenly you have a fan for life. And it makes things a lot more fun.
Bingo. Bingo. Yeah, but I mean, both of you are on it. It's so interesting to hear how just different people navigate that and execute. But I think I love what I heard from both of you. And I mean, what is more special than having the project named after someone? I mean, that's amazing. Amazing. But yeah, I mean, talk about fan for life, and not only a fan, but just an ambassador for your project and for your game. They're just going to go out and have a whole different word of mouth is still king, right? So they're going to go out and just the not only what they say about your project, but how they say it, and with the conviction and enthusiasm is just a game changer for bringing people into your world. Quick last couple of things as I'm looking at the time here to wrap up, and you guys have been great. One piece of advice to write in permanent marker to etch in stone for someone that might listen to this on YouTube or see a piece of content. What's one piece of advice for an up and coming game developer that's going to get into this space?
I don't know if it's one piece of advice. I think it's a small string of advice. Like if you have a game developer wanting to get into the Web3 gaming area, it's multi-sig. Just if you don't know what it is, look it up and learn about it. It's really important. But also make sure that anything you don't know about the crypto space, you're surrounded by people who do. But above anything and everything else, you're making a game. And the whole point of a game is to have fun. And if your players aren't having fun, they're not going to play your game. So that's really it. Stick to it, push through the suck, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's actually great advice. On my end, it's just like be patient, don't rush, and prepare to learn a lot. But like when I say a lot, it's like prepare to learn basically in the space of like a couple of months what you didn't learn like in the past like 20 years. Because especially like if it's a new developer or someone like starting a gaming studio from scratch and doesn't have like that much of experience, there is so many things that you need to look into and to learn that require like a lot of patience. So it's one of those things that it takes time, but is also at the end of the day, like if you really come like from a place of passion, it's like the best thing that you can do. It's like it's an amazing thing to be able to create something that then people can play it, and you can basically see like your vision coming to life in a very like dynamic way. So it's totally worth it.
Oh, this is actually a good one. Kind of pops in my head. If you're a game developer working for Web3 in the future, or pretty much any kind of game, and you want to get some free advertisement, make sure you put some sort of element in your game that gives content creators the ability to have cinematic tools at their disposal. If they can make cool looking content with your game, you don't even have to make commercials. They'll do it for you.
That's the winner. That's a good one. That's a great one, Gordon. No, you guys are serving up gold here. And I really appreciate your time. And like I said, we're going to have our editor cut up a lot of great sound bites. And with that said, for the last go around here, I want to get, you guys have been unbelievably gracious and diplomatic. I want you to get a little selfish here. So whether it's your 60-second elevator pitch or just what makes your game different or how are you going to keep your game fun, get a little selfish here and just where you want to go with it. Tell us about your particular project and what sets it apart. Gordon, why don't we kick it to you first?
Okay. Anybody who hasn't heard of Xenia Rust on Twitter, you're more than welcome to pop over and take a look. We have been doing some interesting things, but ultimately, I guess maybe drop me a follow personally on Twitter, because as time goes on, we're planning on making some cool games within the Web3 and just the regular gaming world. So we plan on updating everybody as much as we can and involving people as much as we can. So come along for the ride.
Yeah, basically, if like on our end, it's just like if you want to learn more about like game development in general and like why build on Web3, and also looking behind the scenes on Rune Realms and not only Rune Realms but all the other games that you're building, I can basically join the Discord, have fun, chat, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Amazing. You guys are awesome. And I really, this has inspired me to really dive deep. I said I wasn't the biggest gamer anymore, but definitely it inspired me to check out your projects on a deeper level, both of them in a whole new way. And I hope this is the first of many conversations that you guys have with me and with Gauss, and super pumped to have you. And you guys are well on your way, just listening to how you're navigating the space and how you're treating it. So really appreciate your time coming on and talking about everything that you're doing.
Glad to be here.
Likewise, thank you very much for inviting us. And like when I mean us, like it's Rune Realms and what. Thank you very much for inviting me
Of
as well
course.
to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to get in this space. I think that we're just scratching the surface of all of the topics within this gaming space. So we will definitely be having more conversations in the Gauss ecosystem on this. So I can't thank you enough, and wish you guys the best, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Hey, can you guys put me in touch with Rune over here through Discord?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay. You guys have a good night, and I'll catch up with you later.
You too. Thanks so much.